Begin the current Daf, Mesechta Nedarim Daf Nun, begin 3 lines down at the top of the Yamid, where the Gemara continues in a related vein from the previous Daf. We were talking about Rabbi Huda, who was very poor, and therefore he didn't have what to eat so much, and he liked food that wasn't easily digestible, and he didn't have clothing to go out to the public fast, and he wore the same cloak that his wife made. And the Gemara continues with another famous Tana, that of Rabbi Kiva, how he was also poor, and regarding his ascent to becoming wealthy. Today's Daf. Some doesn't success in today's Daf. Like we said, we're going to speak about Tanoim who lived in great poverty. Rabbi Kiva's journey to greatness, both actually spiritual greatness and financial greatness. The reason why Kal B'Savua was mataneda through a Pesach for Rabbi Kiva, his son-in-law, even though it was a noilid, it was something that was not at the time, and generally you're not allowed to be mataneda through noilid. Sometimes it can develop at a later point in time. The Gemara tells us how Rabbi Kiva became wealthy from 6 different sources. How one prepares Be'er Tumutah, we discussed in the Mishnah, we described a Be'er Tumutah as one of the things that is not a tavshel. And it's not included in Neder of a tavshel because a tavshel is specifically something that you eat with bread, and Be'er Tumutah is not eaten with bread. And the concept of Pesach Menoiled regarding opening up a Neder with something that's going to develop at a later point in time. Another thing that comes up in today's daf is the halacha that Payil Oichel B'Malachta, a worker could eat what he's working with, specifically from that type that he's working with. But he cannot eat from a different type of species that he's not actively engaged in at that time. In the previous step, we spoke about Rabbi Huda, like we said, who lived in great poverty. He didn't want to, he said, he had a miracle, he had money. He says, I don't want to take from this world. And the Gemara continues now, on 3 lines down at the top of the Yom Daf Nun, with another famous Tana who is also poor. Rabbi Kiva is Kadashes Le Berate de Kal B'Savua. The daughter of Kalba Sabua, the reason why it was called Kalba Sabua, whoever came in as hungry as a dog, that's Kalba, would leave Sabua, would leave happy. He was a very wealthy individual. Rabbi Kiva got married to his daughter. Now, Shama Kalba Sabua heard about this. Adra Hana Mikal Nichse, he made a neder prohibiting her to have any benefit from his whole estate, because Rabbi Kiva was an Amaretz, and Azah Shidduch is a Shanda, you don't do such a Shidduch. He says, make a neder prohibiting any Hana from you to have anything from my estate. So Oslo, she went, Be'isnasiva le Besisva. She went, she got married with him, either like our girsa, Besisva means to say in a winter day, maybe like today when it took me 10 minutes to get the frost off my windshield, a cold day, or actually the girsa that's brought on the side is Besisra, like the Gemara Ksuba says, Betzina. So either is that they did it discreetly, or they did it in the winter month, but be that as it may, have a gonna beitivne. They were sleeping amongst the straw. They didn't even have enough money for pillows and blankets. They didn't have any gemach in those days, and the father made a neder prohibiting in front of them. So all they had was some straw, a stroy. Now, have a kamint lay tivna min mazia. It was so bad that Rabbi Kiva had to go ahead and pluck out the straw from his wife's hair, because again, that's all they had to sleep on, and it was great poverty that they had. Now, Amar Law, he said to his wife, Ihavyali, if I had for myself, I would get for you Yerushalayim Dahava, a Yerushalayim of gold. What that actually is the gold. It was a gold ornament that was like a crown that the city of Yerushalayim was engraved in it. And actually, the Ran tells us, as the Gemara tells us in Shabbos Amnon Testament, he ended up doing this for her. But later on, when he became wealthy, he got her this Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, this crown, this tiara. But right now, they were very poor. It's like, honey, if I had all the money in the world, I would get you. But, sorry, this is the situation that we're in. Now, what happened was interesting. Us Eliyahu. So Eliyahu Nabi came. He appeared to them like a regular person, as Ran tells us, because he wanted to comfort them, to show them that there are poorer people than them, which is a very important perspective to always take, the comparison. People always make comparison what's above them. Sometimes you want to get perspective about what's worse than you. So Eliyahu Navi came along. He appeared like a man, but Kalkori above, he was knocking on the door. Amalahu, he said to them, Havuli purta de tivna. Can you spare a little straw? Yaldis itzi. My wife gave birth to a baby, but Leslie Madam La Aguna. I have nowhere to put the baby. So he was asking for straw from the wealthy Rabbi Kiva and his wife who had straw to sleep on. So Amalahu Rabbi Kiva La Antase, Rabbi Kiva said to his wife, look, Chazi Gavra, look, there's a person that even straw he doesn't have. So interesting the way the Gemara sounds like. Amr Leisha, she said to him, Zil Havi Beirav, go and become a Talmud Chacham. I mean, like, now you can go learn in Koil. I was afraid we had no money, we had nothing, nebuch, the lifestyle that we need to live on, and everyone else what they have. I said, look, they're poor people than us. They said, tak, we have it good. Go learn the kail. It's okay. We'll manage. So Azal Tarte Srei Shnin Kamed Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yeshua. So he went to learn 12 years in front of Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, the great sages of that day. Now, Lemishlam Tarte Srei Shnin, at the end of 12 years, Ka'asila Beise, he was coming back home. Shama Minachayre Beise, he hears from behind the house. There was a wicked person telling his wife, it's good what your father did to you, that he made a neder prohibiting you from having any hanav from his estate. Chada, first of all, this husband of yours, he's not similar to you. He's not from a distinguished family like you. What's this marrying out of the yichis over here, marrying a simple shepherd? Moreover, he left you a living widow all these years, 12 years. This is a life. This is what you want for. So this Rasha told the wife, says, it's good what your father did. He was right. So Amrlei, she said to him, if you would listen to me, he would be another 12 years learning in yeshiva. I wouldn't even have him come home even now. So Amar, so Rabbi Kiva heard this conversation. He said, since she gave me permission, I'm going to go back. And as we know that he didn't even come and say hi, because 12 and 12 is not 24. He went back. He was in yeshiva another 12 years. And he came back. It sounds like actually that when he came back the first time, there was no 12,000. It's not like he got every time. Is that maybe this idea that she sacrificed another 12 years without him even coming home. Be that as may, he comes back with 24,000. The gears that we have over here is Zugi, as it's brought here in the Gillian on the side. And Ksubis doesn't say Zugi. That's what it sounds like from the Gemara in Yavamas also. But here it says 24,000 peers of students. So whether it was 24,000 or 24,000 peers, he came back with all these students. And nothing cool, everyone came back to greet him. Right? This is the homeboy from this is from his home state. He comes back, the God Ladar, and they're coming to greet him. She was also going up to greet her husband. So this wicked person tells her, and you, where are you going? In other words, she didn't have any appropriate garments to be dressed for the great event. Tzadik Baleir with the lights lit up and everything. They're coming out with the instruments, and where are you going? So Amalei, she said to him, quoting the pasuk of Mishlei, Yedeya Tzadik, the righteous know nefesh behemtoi, the soul of their animals. Meaning, like Rashi says in Mishlei, what his animals and what his family members needs, the Tzadik knows. In other words, he knows how much I was paying for him to learn in yeshiva for 24 years. Don't worry, he knows what I've sacrificed. So Asas lis chazuile. So she came to appear to him. So the rabbis, the Gaboim, they were pushing away. Who's this lady over here coming to the Rebbe just like that? He said to them, leave her alone. Because what's mine and what's yours, shalahu is hers. Which, interesting, the Ran says different than the way Rashi says. Rashi says elsewhere that the Torah that I learned, that you learned, was through her. He says the Ran, it's because of her. Because she gave me the eitzah, she gave me the counsel lemezel beirav to go learn yeshiva. So that's why shaliv shalachem shalahi, because she gave me the idea. Again, that's how much credit you have to give. He wasn't even talking about the sacrifice of all those years. That's not even why. He says the only reason I went to learn yeshiva was because of her, and therefore she gets all the credit of all our learning. Now, Shema Kabba Savua, the Shver, the father-in-law, Kabba Savua, heard that this great sage came. Also, he came to Itchel al Nidre, and he wanted to undo his neder, prohibiting his daughter and his son-in-law, the Ishtarai, and to permit his neder, and the Ishtarai, and Rabbi Kiva permitted it. Now, the Rana Ahmed Beis brings from the Gemara Ksubis and Daf Samagimel Medalev that the way he was able to open up the neder was he asked him, he says, had you known that your son-in-law was going to be a Tzuvah Merabanan, a Tamachachim, would you have made the neder? So he says, nah, even one perik, even one halacha, even one thing, I wouldn't have made such a neder. Of course, Rabbi Kiva became the great Rabbi Kiva. Obviously, that was not the intent of his neder. The problem is, asked the Ran, how could he have opened up with such a Pesach? But that's what's called noilid. It's something that evolved at a later time. And the Mishnah teaches later on this Masechta of Samach Daled Medav, you cannot be Pesach, you cannot open up a neder with noilid. So, for example, let's say someone says, Koinim, I'm taking a neder, I'm not going to have benefit from that person. And that person becomes the town scribe. He says, had I known these would come to Seifa, I would never have made a neder. That's noilid. That's not a good way of being Pesach and a neder. So how is this any different over here? Says Aram, what you could say is that here it's different. Because Rabbi Kiva, that the whole reason why he got married was for the purpose of becoming a Talmid Chacham, as the Gemara brings over there in Perek Alpha P explicitly. If that's the case, that's not noilid, because it's like the words of the Ran, it's shchiach tuva, it's very common that a person will learn one parak or one halacha, which Chase actually elsewhere says a bigger chiddush. Chase says it's not even noilid to become a Talmid Chacham, because if someone's going to sit and harva and put himself towards learning, he'll become a Talmid Chacham. But definitely one parak and one halacha, and therefore that was not considered noilid, and therefore he was able to be mata the neder of Kal B'Savua, and therefore the Gemara continues now and tells us that obviously his father-in-law was very wealthy, Kal B'Savua, and so the shver now started to shtitz, the item, he started becoming wealthy. But the Gemara tells us, min shis mili, from 6 things, Rabbi Kiva became wealthy from 6 different sources. What are the 6 sources? So number 1 is min Kal B'Savua. Obviously his father-in-law's fortune, where his father-in-law was a wealthy person, he became wealthy. There's a lot of son-in-laws get started with the father-in-law's seed money. You come and give it that way. That's number 1. Number 2 was min ayala de svinta. Ayala is a heart, a type of an animal on the boat. What is that? So the Ran tells us on every boat they used to make like a form of an aisle of a heart made out of wood, as like a symbolic and as a way of like a nichush of like some type of a sorcery that the boat should be light in its traveling like an aisle, and they would fill it up with golden coins. So as the Gemara tells, the chol svinta avdin min, either the gis is aina or ana, where the Rush says that they would make a ram out of gold or a goat from the types of sheep, but they would make it and they would put in their golden coins in there. And zim nechado, one time in shiur al kev yama, they forgot it on the edge of the by the sea, by the shore, and also Rabbi Kiva came along and he found it, so he became wealthy from that fortune that he discovered from this isle that was from the boat. Number 3 was umin gavza. Gavza is like a treasure chest. It's a box that's made to store inside of it the money of the boat, as the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, Beigaz Tirachman. It's a term of oitzer. The zimnachad, the one time, Yov arba zuz lispunai. Kippur gave 4 zuz, not so much money, to sailors. And normally we said to them, I sleep it down, bring me something. Bring me his 4 dinar. The only thing they found was a box on the seashore. So Asule, they brought it to him. And normally they said to him, Ovid marana aleh. You go ahead and you be the master over this box until we bring you more. And the shtakech have a moli dinari. And it turned out it was full of coins. Because where did those coins, where's that box from? So the Gemara tells us that the Zimnachada one time Tavas Svinta, and the Girsa takes the words right beneath and says it right now. The Min Disrakisa, who this individual was he was an Arab, his boat sank. And all the merchandise, all the money was in that box. And that was found that time by those sailors, and they gave that box to Rabbi Kiva, and that was the 3rd source of how he became wealthy. The 4th one was Umin Matronisa. What's this referring to? The Ram tells us the backstory to this. One time, Rabbi Kiva and the students needed money. So they went to this Roman noblewoman. So she said to Rabbi Kiva, look, I'm going to lend you the money, and you'll be the borrower. HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the sea will be the guarantors for this thing. And they set a date for when the payment has to be done. When the date came, that noblewoman went to the seashore, and she said, Master of the world, it's revealed and known in front of you that Rabbi Kiva is sick. He's not able to come right now and pay up the debt. Look, you are the guarantor. At that moment, the daughter of the Caesar became mentally deranged. She took a a box full with precious gems and golden coins. It's like the story of fantasies, all these things. And she threw it into the sea. And the sea brought it to the place where that noblewoman was sitting by the edge of the sea. She took that chest and she left. A few days later, Rabbi Akiva was healed. And he came to the noblewoman and he had the money to pay up his debt. She said to him, I went to the guarantor already and he paid up your whole debt. And he gave me extra more than how much the debt was. And from that money that she gave back to Rabbi Akiva became wealthy. That was the fourth source. Let's continue to Beis. From the wife of Turnus Rufus, he became wealthy. What's that? So the Ran tells the backstory to that also. Rabbi Akiva used to best with verses of this Turnus Rufus Harasha in front of the Caesar, and he would provoke him with words. One time he came home so upset in a fury. So his wife said to him, why are you so upset? Why are your face so soured? He said to her, because this Rabbi Akiva, that he just, every time he gets me, and I can never win him. So she said to him, look, and this is very important, obviously, for our generation, the God of those Jews hates immorality, licentiousness. Give me permission, and I'm going to cause him to stumble in sin. So he gave her permission because, he'll use his wife, whatever it takes to take down Rabbi Akiva. And she got all dressed up, and she went to Rabbi Akiva. When Rabbi Akiva saw her, he had three reactions. He spit, he laughed, and he cried. So she obviously is getting very curious, what's this great rabbi doing over here? She said to him, what are these three things? He said to him, look, two I'll explain, and the third one I'm not going to explain. He says, the reason why I spit was because you come from a putrid drop. It's like, it's all fantasy that we see this woman all dressed up. It's from a putrid drop of semen. And I cried because of the great beauty that will be ultimately kiss the dirt. Meaning you're going to end up dying and you turn into maggots and worms. Now, why did he laugh? Because he saw with his Holy Spirit that she's going to ultimately convert and he's going to get married to her. But he didn't want to let her know that. He wasn't going to tell her that. That's why he laughed. But he told her why he spit and why he cried. So she said to him, is there any way of repenting? She obviously was inspired by what he said. He said yes. She went, she converted, and Rabbi Akiva married her. And she brought him a lot of money, maybe from her first husband, whatever it was. And that's the fifth source how he became wealthy. And the sixth one is, says the Gemara, Min Ketia Bar Shalom, which the Rosh explains, the Gemara and Avodah Zarah, Daf Yomi tells us that he was very wealthy, gave all his money to Rabbi Akiva and to his students. That was the 6 ways how, not much that we could really imitate to try to become wealthy, but these are the 6 ways that Rabbi Akiva became wealthy. The Gemara brings up a similar story regarding with sailors, that of Gamda, Yoev Dal Zuzi Lisfonai. I think this might be in those Yiddish Bichel, those little small booklets that this story is brought over here. He gave 4 zuzim to sailors. Lasui behind midam, bring me something, maybe like Google, try your luck. One of these, just give them 4 dinars and see what you're going to get. So Ashkecha, they didn't find anything. So Asila lay behind Kupa. They brought him a monkey that they had ishtamit. Now the monkey ran away, and Ola Charsa, it went into some cave, some hole, and Chafra Basrei, they dug after the monkey. Ishkachua, they found him the Revia al Margali Yasa, that he was sitting on pearls. And Aisinan lay Kulhain, and they brought him all the pearls, like the Ran says, Hamidus Chasidus, not because they had to, but because the sailors felt like, we bought him the monkey, and the monkey ran away, and we found the monkey sitting on all these pearls. Therefore, they gave him all those pearls. Now, a related discussion, Amrlei Bas Kesel Rabbi Shloimy Hananya. The daughter of the Caesar said to Rabbi Shloimy Hananya, Torah mefa'ara, such a splendorous Torah, b'klei mechor, in an ugly vessel, meaning Rabbi Shloimy Hananya was not beautiful. And she was saying, how could you have such splendorous Torah in such an ugly vessel? So Amar Allah, he said to her, Limdim beis avuch, I want you to learn from your father's household. But in your father's household, you're the Caesar's household, what do you put the wine in? So Amalei, she said to him, B'mani defachre, in earthenware vessels. So Amalei said to Kuli Amma B'pachre, I understand everyone that they put into earthenware vessels. Ba'atun b'mani defachre, and you put your wine in earthenware vessels? What do you mean? Atun achisin, you should be putting your wine, your expensive Cabernet and your Merlot, B'mani de kaspa b'hava, Should be in gold and silver vessels. What's this? How could you have such great wine in such low quality vessels? So Azlas V'Ramas, so she went, she placed the chama, the wine, b'mani the chaspa b'dahava, in golden and silver vessels, and b'sari, and the wine soured, it got ruined. So Amalah, he said to her, the Torah is the same thing. The Torah is compared to wine. The Torah, the wine, that's such high quality, actually has to be in this low quality vessel of earthenware. Someone who's ugly, not in a high quality vessel, which in the deeper thought is very important, because the question is, where you're putting your emphasis on. Is it on the vessel or is it on the content? And if the vessel is too beautiful, then you lose sight of the content, and therefore a beautiful person is not the right vessel. An ugly person is the vessel. So Amra Le, she said to him, there are beautiful people who know how to learn Torah also. Amar said to her, if they would have been ugly, have a gemirin tvei. They actually would be even more learned than they are right now. Because as Rashi says in Mesechtes Tainis, it's not possible for a beautiful person to humble themselves, and therefore they come to shikha, they come to forgetting their learning. And again, in the deeper mystical ideas is really about what do you focus on. The vessel's never supposed to be more important than the contents itself. And if a person is beautiful, you're essentially accentuating the vessel, and therefore they're not as well learned as when someone who's not as focused on their externality. Now the Gemara brings Hahid Asi Lekamed Rabbi Yehuda ben Ado Ladina, related to being ugly, or about being very graphic about a person's non-beautiful features. There was a woman who came in front of Rabbi Yehuda from Arda for a court case, and he held her liable guilty in the court case. So Amalek, she said to him, Shmuel Rabach, your teacher Shmuel, Heichedanen, Hachidanen, this is how he would judge. In other words, this is what the Ruv is telling me, but would your Rebbe do the same thing? Amalek said to Yidasle. He was excited. Someone knows his Rebbe. You know him? So Amalek, she says, yes. Gutza, he was short. But Rabbi Kreisi has a big belly. Ukim, he was like dark skin. But Rabbi Shine, and these big teeth. So Amalek, he said to Levizuyi Kasas, you're coming to disgrace him? To have it's a beshamta, let this woman be excommunicated. Paka, she burst, Mesa, and she died. Again, we don't talk about sages in that derogatory way. Now, going back to the halacha of the Mishnah, we had mentioned that if you say koinim tavshul, like taking a neder, that I'm not going to eat a tavshul, so he said a few things that you're permitted in, and one of them was a muta bebeit tumita, that you're permitted in beit tumita, because like we had said, tavshul is something, at least in the Talmudic definition, was something that you eat with bread. And this beit tumita, you don't eat with bread. Says my beit tumita, what's this tumita egg? So Amar Shmuel, he says, first he qualifies it by describing. He says that Avda, the Ovid law, if you have a servant that could make this Beir Tamita, which obviously was a very sophisticated thing, Shavi Alpha Dinar, he's worth 1,000 dinar. Why? Because how do you make it? So you make it as follows. Mayla Alpha Zimni b'maychamim. You have to put 1,000 times. That's pretty intense. 1,000 times into hot water. Then the Alpha Zimni b'may kriyur. You have to put 1,000 times into cold water. Adem Mesuzutra, until it shrinks. And the reason is so that you could swallow it, meaning it's the size of how a person could swallow without chewing in one shot. So think about pills, right? People try to swallow pills. Like, it has to be that small that you could swallow it in one shot. Now, the im is keva. What's the purpose? Why would they swallow this beir tumita? If a person has a pain intestinally in the stomach, so sarchala, the pain would grab onto that and get stuck onto that egg. And b'kanafka v'asya, when the egg would come out the other side from the body, yoda asya, so the doctor would know my sama mitvayile, what medicine the person needs, ubamai mitzvah, and what he's going to be healed. Meaning, according to the visual of this egg, the doctor would recognize what medicine is going to heal that person. So therefore, it was definitely a medicinal purpose. And the Gemara tells us Shmuel have a badig nafshe. He actually would check out his digestive tract, the kulcha, like the aruch brings. He would put a head of a cabbage into his mouth and he would swallow it. And because the Ram says Shmuel was not well versed in this beir tumita, So he couldn't check himself out with that. So he would check himself out with a kulcha. Ad the misastron inish beise ale sarehan, until his family members were tearing out their hair, meaning that this kulcha was very thorough in its investigation until Shmuel would faint, and because it was going through his digestive tract, and his family members had so much pain that they were like tearing out their hair. How their father, the doctor Shmuel, would be doing this type of inspection. But again, he would do this to like whatever was intestinally in the microbiome, whatever this net, to see what was going on over there. Therefore, he would check like that. Now, the Gemara related to an eved that you have that's working, like we said, that an eved that does this beir to meet is worth 1,000 zuz. So the Gemara brings related. It's not hasam. We learned over there in the Mishnah in Mesechtes Maisros. Mishnah says if the worker was doing work bechlufsin. Glufsin are types of figs. So if he's working with those figs, he's not allowed to eat a different type of figs. The reason why he can't eat is because the worker is only allowed to eat from the type of species that he's literally working with at that moment. He can't eat from a different type that he's not working in that moment. So to b'nei sheva, if he's working with the b'nei sheva figs, he cannot eat with the chlufsin. Now my chlufsin, what are these chlufsin? So the meina the types of figs, the avdim and hoin lafte, that they would make lafti. Lafti is a type of a cooked dish of figs. They made the lafti out of these types of figs. Now the Gemara brings this related Hu Gavra, the Yoav Avdil Chaber. There was a certain person, he gave a certain servant to his friend, Lagmure, to teach him Alpha Mini Lafti, 1,000 ways of making this lafti, this dish made out of figs. It was 1,000 ways. I look at these cookbooks, these incredible how many options you could do, 1,000 ways. Now, Agmere Tamani Meya. He taught him, however, only 800 ways. So Azmini Ledina Lekamei Rebbe. So he brought him to court. He brings him to Bezdin, and from the Rebbe that said, "Hey, he was supposed to teach 1,000, and he only taught 800." So Rebbe says, and you have the Ruv with the longer board, and he's sitting there. Says he eats maybe porridge every day. He says, "Avesenu Amra, our father said Nashinu Taiva. We forgot what good is like." Quoting a pasuk in Eicha, which says Nashisi Taiva. He says, with our eyes, we never saw such a thing. Another, he was wondering, so much tainug there is in the world. You come to Simcha and you see these incredible things like that. His eyes are popping out. He said, I never knew there was such ideas that. So here, Rebbe, they came to a court case and he's like, what? I mean, 1,000 different ways of making this dish, and you take him to court because he taught only 800 instead of 1,000. Like he was just like shocked. Now, continuing actually with Rebbe and the Simcha, so the Gemara actually tells us. Rebbe, Avadle Hilula, and again, Rebbe, we know how wealthy he was, and still Rebbe's like, he's shocked that this is how much, pleasure people are having over here. Rebbe Avadle Hilula Reb Shimon Rebbe, or the Ger says Berei. Rebbe had made a chasna for his son, Reb Shimon. So Kasav Bar Kapara wrote Al Beis Ganana on the chuppah, Estrin va'arba alfen ribuyin dinarim. This is way before Takanas. There was 240 million dinarim. Nafku al Beis Ganana Dain was spent on this chasna. V'lo yazmini la Bar Kapara, and he didn't invite Bar Kapara. He was upset that how much money he spent on this wedding and I wasn't invited. So Bar Kapara said to Rebbe the following line. He says, if for those who violate his will, meaning he was talking about Rabbi Yehuda Anasi, he said that Hashem gives them so much shefa. So for those who do his will, all the more so that they're going to get so much shefa, because he was degrading Rebbe that he didn't invite him. So Azman, he invited him. So Omar, he said, for those who do his will, in this world they have so much shefa, so much bounty, the world to come, the more so, where now he started to sing his praise because he got invited to the chasna. Thank you to Anytime for hosting us.